So thank you again. My name is Nicole Cardoza. I am the founder of Reclamation Ventures Fund, which we are here to discuss today. My work has been rooted in wellness and particularly wellness equity for the past few years. I also run a couple of other organizations that are in the wellness space, one being Wellemental, which is an organization that has a meditation and mindfulness app for kids of color. And it also a training program for school teachers to integrate yoga and mindfulness into their classrooms. I also run a media company called the ARD that runs the Anti-Racism Daily and 28 Days of Black History. And so especially if you're a part of those communities, thank you. And thank you for being here. Allie?
I'm up. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Allie, Allie Simon, and what do I do out in this world? Oh, wow. I do a number of things. And right now, as I mentioned, I'm here in the LA area, and I'm like, what do I do? But
I'm honestly still integrating from your practice.
I know, same. But I lead mindfulness and yoga in various spaces throughout community spaces. These days, I've been a lot on live. I also work in the nonprofit philanthropy sector, have been for many years now, and a lot of my work is also is rooted in healing justice and as well as racial justice. And it's really about really supporting nonprofit leaders who've been really doing work in communities that they're passionate about, that focus on early stage initiatives that really support the people. And so a couple months ago, Nicole brought me on to really be a part of this fund, and it's really in alignment with so many of the other work that I've been doing. And I just feel really, really excited to be here and to be able to share in this, using lots of my energy in the philanthropy sector as well as wellness to combine to continue to offer support for those who I know are out here doing the work. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you for being a part of this. And Allie chatted a little bit about this, and why I'm so honored to have you a part of the fund. The fund is really about investing in well-being for all of us. I started the fund in 2019 because as a founder in the wellness space, I know how difficult it can be to do this work, especially when we are trying to create space for marginalized communities and ourselves identify as such. And so the fund is committed to elevating entrepreneurs doing the work, practitioners that are doing the work through grants, investments, events, thought leadership. And our goal is to really recreate the industry so that we don't have to exist, so that these opportunities are available for all. Our history, I started this organization in fall of 2019. And so we're quite new. We're just a little over a year old, but I wanted to give kind of a breakdown of what we've done so far. We started the organization with impact grants, which is what we'll be discussing today. $5,000 of unrestricted funding to go to entrepreneurs and other practitioners and leaders and healers and community holders, that are making wellness more accessible. So in fall and winter of 2019, we granted 3 of those impact grants. And then over the course of 2020, we shifted our focus to doing relief funding for people in the wellness industry because of COVID-19. I'm sure we're all aware about how COVID-19 disrupted our industry, changed how we do our work. And so we raised and distributed about $170,000 to over 100 different individuals to support them wherever they are with whatever they needed in that moment. And now in 2021, our focus has returned back to our impact grants. This spring, we are granting $30,000 in those impact grants, but we actually have 4 grant rounds that'll be happening this year. So before we dive into what's happening this spring, I just want you to know that we're going to have 4 of these coming up in 2021. So we hope that we can get into a practice, right? Of every season, we know that this is happening. It'll be a very similar process. And a lot of what you'll hear now will be applicable moving forward. And of course, if anything changes, we'll let you know. So our spring grant round is what we're talking about now. We'll have one in summer that launches in May, one in the fall that launches in August, and then one in the winter that will launch in October. And so just stay tuned for those. But let's talk about the one that we're here for, which is the Spring 2021 Impact Grant. And so this is what that'll look like. We are providing 6 grants of $5,000 each. And so each of those funds are unrestricted non-equity grants. And what that means is this is money for the leader, the person that receives it to do with whatever and however they wish. There's no rules on how you spend the money. There's no deadline that you have to spend the money by. This is work to really help you. And that could mean, paying off some debt. That could mean buying things that you need, like yoga mats, for example, for your work. That could mean paying the rent of the space that you hold, the space that you rent out to hold your practices. It's whatever that means for you. And non-equity means that we're not asking for anything in return. There's no payback. We don't get a percentage of your company. This is money for you to do with as you wish. And if that means it holds space for your individual well-being or the well-being of your community, or both, that choice is yours. And I want to really name that. Ellie was going to say the same thing. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and that also means if you need to rest.
Yeah.
So this can go into supporting you resting, and we've put that on the website as well, just so that that we value you, and we value rest.
Yeah, because I think many of us know if we aren't well individually, it's very difficult to do that work on a collective level. So yes. So these grants will be $5,000 each to 6 individuals for underestimated entrepreneurs or leaders or practitioners. Entrepreneur isn't the best word there. Anybody that's doing this work. But underestimated in particular is important because what we're looking to do, this fund is designed to hold space for individuals that are systemically marginalized from the wellness community. And so if you've been practicing in this space, you may realize that this wellness industry has really been designed to uphold whiteness. It's often designed for people with a higher sense of income. It's often designed for an able-bodied community. And so this is really a space that we are holding with intention for those that have felt marginalized from it. That might not have the same access and opportunity to things like capital, the opportunities to rest. And so we'll talk about underestimated a little bit more as we go through this for the criteria. And to make wellness more accessible, right? We're really looking for people that are, doing this work, that are helping to shift the wellness industry for the greater good. And so I can imagine that many of you are here because of that reason. Also, at any point, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. I see those coming through, and we'll make sure that we get to them as we go. All right, this is you, Allie.
Yeah, awesome. So in terms of eligibility, so first thing is you must identify as underestimated. We did drop in the FAQs, I believe, someplace, but just to kind of give you some info about that. Where is it? Wait, actually, before I'll go a little bit further than that, but I want to go down the other ones first. Based in the U.S. and your work actually impacting the U.S. I believe there are some questions around whether or not you needed to be a U.S. citizen. In terms of, I don't think so. Nicole, do you know exactly? I don't think so. I think it's just mostly that you're in the U.S. and that your work is impacting folks in the U.S.
That's correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of age, being over the age of 18, some of these are standard for us to be able to, and transparency for us to be able to fund, as to being able to, taxes and all that unfortunate stuff. But, and then also identifying as a founder, a nonprofit leader, a healer, practitioner, teacher, organizer. We're also, any way that you're making wellness accessible, even if you're doing movement work, healing justice work within organizations or nonprofits, or working within, that still is a part of that as well. And then also not working currently part-time or full-time with Reclamation Ventures. And so in terms of underestimated, what is underestimated? I think, did you already talk about, you didn't talk about exactly what it is, right? Okay.
I did it briefly, but you can go through it if you'd like.
Okay, perfect. So on our website, we kind of explained it a little bit further if you want to look at our FAQs, but basically underestimated is really anyone who's within the wellness industry, people who identify as BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, have larger bodies, fat or plus size, lower socioeconomic status, living with disabilities, having lived experiences of homelessness or experiencing gentrification. There's so much more here, but if you identify with as underestimated, we really invite you to apply, and you know your identity more than we would. But this does not necessarily mean that if, I was going to say that it isn't just for BIPOC folks, but at the same time, just reminding us that about 70% of our funding is going directly to BIPOC individuals. So, but if you identify with as underestimated, there you go. Anything else that I'm missing here?
No. And just if there's people unfamiliar with the term BIPOC, that means identifying as Black, Indigenous, or another person of color. And so, like Ali said, we have allocated 70% of our funding to go to that community. And you could also identify as underestimated if you do not identify as BIPOC. So just want to make that clear.
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go over this really quick. So we just had a couple of these questions that came in from people that have worked with us in the past. So if you've applied for like our relief grants that we did last year, and if you received one, you can apply for this grant again. We saw our relief funding last year as a way that we could immediately support individuals that were in immediate need. And so if you did receive a grant from that, you can still apply and potentially receive this grant this round. If you've received an impact grant in the past, though, you cannot apply for an impact grant again in the future. So the 3 people that received an impact grant in the past cannot apply for this grant in the future. Cool. Anything else? Because that went really quick.
It totally did. I hope we weren't talking too quickly in that, but I don't think we were. So.
I feel like we missed a slide that I might have gotten rid of. Hang on. Nope. I don't see it. But the slide that I must have deleted somehow is the timing on all of that. And so what I'm going to do is pull that up on our website. And so we can get that up there for a second. But as you look at, as you think about what we just shared, let me know if there's any questions. And again, just put them in the Q&A box. But the one thing I do want us to get us grounded on is the timing. Sorry about that. I must have deleted it when I was like finalizing everything.
No worries.
So.
And this is, while you're pulling that up, I just want to invite folks to drop their questions in the Q&A box. I know there's some, I will try to go back through the chat to see if I can pull some in, but it's a little easier with the Q&A box if you have it. If not, like I said, I'll try to go back through and read through some of them.
Okay, great. And on our website, you can find the timeline and the key dates for what's next. And so we have 4 key dates that you should be aware of moving forward. The first one is today. We're hosting this virtual info session. This will be available on our website to rewatch if you have any other questions. On Monday, the grant request form will open formally. If you go to our website now, you may even notice that you can see it and start looking at it right now. So if you're at your computer and you're like, oh, I really want to see what this looks like, go ahead to our website, go to the grant page, and you'll be able to check it out. And you can apply anytime from then until March 5th, where the grant request closes. So that gives about a month for everybody to submit their applications. And then over the month of March, we'll have a team of incredible partners of ours that we've worked with in the past, including previous grant recipients, help review all of the applications and make our final decision. We'll be looking for individuals that have completed the application fully, that have given us really specific details about their work and how this grant can support them. And then we'll be able to tell everybody and notify them of their grant request status by March 26th. And then after we've done that, we'll work with each person to quickly deliver them their funds. And then, like I said, the second grant round will happen again in May. So if you do not receive a grant this round, you'll be welcome to reapply again in May. And you'll have plenty of time, and we'll have a whole process again. We'll have more Infosession resources again, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Would you like me to read the couple questions for you? Maybe you'll have the answer. I pulled out a bunch of questions from the chat as well.
Yep.
But we'll start with the Q&A box.
Okay.
If that feels good. Is this program only for American citizens? I think there's been a lot of questions around that, like even folks who are based someplace else but feel like they're doing work in the US or doing online classes, I believe. So I'm kind of pulling together some of those same questions.
Yep.
So yeah.
Sure. So you have to be based in the US, meaning you have to have a permanent address. And I know this is really difficult. Permanent address is like, I was a nomad for 3 years, so bear with me here, but you have to have an address that you belong to in whatever capacity here in the US. The important thing as well is that your work is impacting people here in the US. And that's important to us because as a fund, as an organization, we really want to increase wellness equity here in the United States. And we feel like our work, not just with funding, but other events that we want to hold and thought leadership and partnerships that we can do will be US based. So that would be it. You do not have to be a US citizen. If your work is doing work in the US and abroad, we encourage you to apply. But if you're working in the US, but your wellness work is based outside of the US, then it's likely not a good fit. I will offer, though, that if you still feel called to apply for this grant, then you are more than welcome to do so.
Next question is, do you support Christian nonprofit organizations?
We support organizations that if it falls into the wellness work, yes.
Let's see here. Are we aware of anything like this grant being available on the Canadian side?
Ooh, I am not, but I will definitely keep an eye out.
Someone wants us to share the dates of the future rounds again.
Sure. They should be on our website as well. I'll post, if you go to fund.reclamationventures.co and click on the grants tab, you'll see all of them there, but I can pull them up real quick and reshare them. So we've got, one second, you can't see that. So we've got the spring grant round that opens on Monday. Technically, we've got the summer one that opens in May, the fall one that opens in August, and the winter one that opens at the end of October.
Nice. So while that's up, I know a few folks have a couple questions about the actual application process.
Sure.
There's a question around what are the comments of a successful application?
Mm-hmm.
And another kind of similar is what kind of operation or business documents are required to submit? So kind of like the application process.
Sure.
I don't know if we want to bring up the
That's what I'm thinking. Go away. Okay, so this is the grant application that is, somebody said they might not be able to access it, but is/will be on our website, and I'll make sure that there's not any other accessibility issues. It's going to ask you some basic demographic information. And then, oh, well, let me show you on the back end. It's going to show you some basic demographic information. And then after that, it's going to ask a couple of questions about your work. Generally speaking, because this was a question, be as specific as possible. We really want to get to know your work. We want to understand how we can support you, you as an individual, the work that you are up to, and build a relationship with you. Oftentimes people will respond to these grant applications with 2 or 3 words, which is a really difficult way sometimes to build a relationship. So we recommend to try to respond with as much detail as you can. So there's a couple of questions that we'll ask. First is, how does your lived experience align with our definition of underestimated? Which is what Ali and I talked about before. We really want to make sure that we're investing in individuals to have less opportunities to have their work be seen and to be held and supported in this industry. So we're going to ask you about that. We're then going to ask you, and I'm on the edit side of this, so I don't have to go through the application to show you the second page. The second question right here is, how does your lived experience inspired your commitment to wellness? So what about your journey, your life brought you to the practices that you're leading, supporting now? You know, I hear, you know, with my background working in schools, working with youth, understanding how mental health has affected my family. I would talk a lot about that here, right? How would this funding support you and your work at this current stage? So right now, and I would be really specific here. You know, some people will say this will help me buy mats, but that's a good thing to know, but I'd love to know a little bit more. If you are looking to invest $5,000 in supplies, tell me about that work. Tell me how it will support the organization that you're leading or the people that you work with. You know, if you really need a break, tell us how this will help you get there. And what is your hope for the future of wellness? That's the last question that we'll ask you. These are all open, long answer text responses. So it's not, you know, we're not looking for like a word maximum or anything like that, but we just want to hear your responses. Your last one's, what's your hope for the future of wellness? You know, this organization is designed to change this industry. You know, Ali and I, on the website, you'll see some of these big questions that we have, some inquiries that we're in. And one of them is like, what would it look like for our work to impact the industry to a place where we don't have to exist as an organization? You know, where financial resources are abundant and accessible for those that are least likely to receive them. And so I would hope that your work is aligned with that, right? Because or I hope that we're all working together to do that, because I sure as heck know that the fund can't do that alone. So we're really looking to hear about how you want to see this space change. This question right here underneath tells you that you don't have to respond to this through text. If you want, you can also upload a video file or an audio file with your responses to those questions in the application. It doesn't change or influence like your opportunity or eligibility to receive the grant. We just know that some people prefer to communicate in different ways, and so we want to make this as accessible as possible. Then we'll ask you one more question, which is, what else do you want us to know? What else have we not asked for? What else is calling you in that moment? So this is the application. The first part I can just show you again. It's just some of the demographic questions. You know, your name, your pronouns, kind of where your work is based, a bit more about your social identity, you know, your background, your identity. Okay, I think I talked a lot. Any other questions on that coming in?
Yes, sorry. The deadline, we already talked a little bit about that, but just, can you just say what the deadline date is?
Sure. So the deadline, the applications are due on March 5th. So you'll have a whole month from tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then a couple of folks were asking, do you have to be, I'll read kind of these three questions, and I think in one answer you'll probably answer it, but do you have to be an established yoga, not yoga, but established teacher or leader, like a certain number of years in the wellness space? Second question, is there a limit or restriction on what type of modalities qualified as wellness? And do you have to have a physical location? So
The answer is no. There's no requirements in terms of how long you've been in this space. There's no requirements on the type of wellness, and you don't have to have a physical location. You know, we've funded an organization in the past that does all of their work digitally. You know, Julio Rivera at Liberate Meditation received an impact grant from us in fall 2019. And that work, you know, that's a meditation app designed for the Black community. And so that's not, it didn't have a physical location where its work was happening.
Okay. Another question is, if someone's denied, will they receive feedback?
We're not doing individual feedback on grant applications, but we will let you know either way. So you're not going to apply and then not hear back from us. We will respond to we'll let you know for a response, but we don't have individual feedback available at this time.
Okay. And I will say that some folks are saying they're receiving an error when they try to access the grant link. So just bear with us. Once we finish this, we'll get it together.
I'll just share the direct Google form link in the chat for everybody as well as we're chatting. It does require you to sign in, so that could be a problem.
Okay. Okay, so I think a lot of these have been answered. Lots of questions, y'all. Really, so bear with me. I'm just trying to get through all of them, but some really, really great questions. Can more than one person from the same org apply?
They can, but we give this grant to the individual. And so we're looking at an individual grant opportunity. It does not mean in any way that both people would receive it. And if you apply on behalf of the company, or if you're applying and you're a part of the company, that money goes to you, the individual, and not the company. So it's not like if I applied on behalf of my app, Wellamental, it doesn't mean Wellamental's getting that money. It means Nicole's getting that money. And Nicole can do with that money what she pleases. So I want to make that really clear. Nicole could choose to give it to Wellamental, but Nicole could also choose to, you know, take a weekend off. So that is the intention of our grant. Thanks for managing the Q&A.
Absolutely. It's so fun. I'm like, I actually
I'm like sweating over here. Like, okay, give me another.
How many people typically apply versus how many actually get accepted?
Yeah, so on average, I think at our last grant rounds, we had 300 to 400 in 2019. When we did the COVID-19 relief funding, our organization grew significantly because a lot of people learned about us when we were doing relief granting. We received thousands of applications for relief granting in 2020. And that's why we don't offer individual feedback, is because neither Ali and I work on this full time, and it would be a significant amount of labor to do individual feedback for everybody. And although I recognize the importance of feedback and how it can be helpful, we really want to preserve as much funding as possible to go to everyone's pockets. You see some people in the chat about, yeah, the money can go for yourselves and not your nonprofit. That's your choice.
Yes, I did see a couple of folks who were asking about that. Yeah. If it had to be connected to a 501c3, and as Nicole stated, it is for the individual. So
you should be able to select more than one set of pronouns. Should be check boxes there.
Okay. Oh, also someone is asking, why is 30% of funds for white communities?
So 30% of funds isn't for like the general white community. 30% of funds is for individuals that identify as white and also identify as underestimated. We know that there are so many identities of being underestimated that could fit with a white identity, like, for example, being a part of the LGBTQ community, having an invisible or visible disability, being impacted by the criminal justice system. And so we do allocate 30% of at most, so at least 70% of our funding is going to the BIPOC community, at least. So there is a space for us to be able to invest in individuals that identify as white and also identify with another marginalized background.
Yes, I had that other question. That was another one too, so.
Yeah, Ali, I'm not sure what's happening there, but I'll figure that out. I'm seeing the pronoun thing come up again.
Yeah, the pronoun thing, and there's something else around veteran and that identity. I took the question, and so just so you all know, if you're having trouble there, once we get off of this, we'll kind of do some edits and things like that, and it will be available. Maybe give us a little bit of time and maybe check back again later on this evening.
We initially were planning on having it be available Monday, and then we realized it might just be easier to walk people through it on this call in full transparency on Thursday, tonight. But we decided that like an hour ago. So we still have some testing to do, and I'm grateful we get to test it with y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone is asking here in the chat, do you consider the patient population that are reached through the work of the applicant?
We consider it, however, it's very important. It's great that you might be impacting an underestimated community, but our primary focus is investing in the leader themselves. And so if you do not personally identify as underestimated, then this grant is not designed for you, even if you're supporting that community. And it's not because your community doesn't deserve support, it's because we know that there's a higher likelihood that you can receive funding elsewhere.
Yeah. Is it possible to select more than one set of pronouns?
Should be. And we're fixing that.
Okay, you saw that one. Okay.
Well, I saw it in the chat.
That was what you saw. Okay, my bad. Do we fund proposals that are in the ideation stage?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Oh, the meditation app was Liberate Meditation.
Oh yeah, so that's Liberate Meditation. Is it maybe liberatemeditation.com? If you can see it and you know the URL, you can pop it in. But that was one of the 3 grant recipients. You can see all of the past grant recipients for the impact grants on our website on the grants page if you scroll down. Yeah. There's also Kate Herrera Jenkins, who does really incredible, runs an organization called Native Strength Revolution that does yoga programming and yoga teacher trainings on reservations across the United States. And then we also gave a grant to Octavia Rahim that has a yoga studio called Sacred Chill West in Atlanta. Yeah, Octavia is great. I see people going.
Yeah, another question that I have, and I know maybe we'll take a couple more, but do you look at anything else besides the application materials, like social media platforms, website? No, we were just talking about this.
Yeah, no, we don't care about that stuff. If you want us to see it, put it in the application. Like if you're like, hey, I have this great video that tells you more about my work and you can find it on my Instagram, then tell us. But no, I'm not going to stalk you.
Yeah. And kind of what we were also saying is, if for some folks, if you don't have a website, that's okay. Like if you have a website, great. We want to see it. We want to make sure, but at the same, not make sure, but we just want to, like, if that's what you want to share us, but at the same time, we want you to know that, like, this isn't about, some of us are out here doing the work, but don't really go on social media a lot, and that's okay, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's live. I think we're pretty much, all of these are pretty much kind of going in the same. This one.
I see some other stuff in the chat, so hopefully it's also in the
yeah. Would gardening and food sovereignty work fall into definition of wellness?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing we're not funding is like any like we can't directly fund like your medicines, like, or some like kind of like powders or anything like that. But
and also like product, if you have a wellness clothing line or anything like that, we're more so in actually funding the work,
the service work.
Yeah, the service work. Does wellness have to be specific to physical health? Could it be mental health work? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Mental health is key. Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see. Anything else? Is there a size limit on the video, audio that we may upload within the application?
I don't believe so. If there is, I think the application says it. Or maybe you're saying that because it doesn't. So I will make sure that's the case. Yeah. It looks like it can go up to 10 gigabytes. Or sorry, 1 gigabyte. So that's your limit.
Yep. So we've said, yep. Okay, so there's so many questions still.
It's okay.
I'm trying my best to kind of click through and
doing great.
The ones that we've done already. Release of the winners announced. How quickly are funds released after winners are announced?
That really depends on, you know, how you ask us for the funds and all of that. But I'm in the business, I'll make this personal. I'm in the business of getting money to people as quickly as possible because I ran a nonprofit for 6 years that waited months on ends for a check. So we will do what we need to get it to you as quickly as possible. You know, bank transfers take a couple of days sometimes if a check's going in the mail. But we're committed to getting that to you as quickly as possible.
Nice. Okay.
Somebody mentioned that they're a part of a coalition that has a mix of BIPOC and white folks. As a coalition, they're not considered as underestimated. The thing is you'll be applying on behalf of you and not on behalf of your coalition. And so if you feel like you yourself identify as underestimated and the work that you are doing is making wellness more accessible, then I encourage you to apply.
Yeah.
You know, I see a lot of, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I know what you're going to probably answer what I was going to say, but.
I'm just saying, I see a lot of people with those kinds of specific questions. You are applying on behalf of your identity as underestimated and how you think your work makes wellness more accessible. I see there's a lot of things in the chat that are like hyper specific questions. If you feel like this works for you, then you should apply.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I'm saying. It's just that same thing as like folks just asking whether or not their organization, 501(c)(3), all of that stuff. Like if you have that, great. And if not, great. We are, yeah, it's the individual. So how are you feeling? You want to take a couple more?
Yeah, I can take a couple more.
Fire a few more at you? Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'm checking with how you're feeling there.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Okay, good. Is there a limit or restriction on what types of modalities? No, you
No.
already answered that. Uh, got the questions. Okay, perfect. Let me go down to the bottom. Should we worry about taxes?
That's something you have to ask your tax accountant person on. And the distinction on that can differ if you decide to take it as a company or a nonprofit or as an individual. Like you decide where that money goes. You tell us, we send the check. That's really on you. We are offering this as a grant. So we are not going to send you a 1099. We're not going to put you on some weird payroll. We're sending this money as a gift. And so I would consult a tax person on your end on the best way to handle that.
And this is a good question. The three people you have funded have a lot of social capital. Can you talk about your your choice making and how you are decolonizing that?
In terms of like how you choose people who do not have social capital moving forward?
Yeah.
This is a really great question. Especially,
yeah, like if you want to clarify that a little bit more, feel free to drop it in the chat, whoever dropped that in. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a really good question, especially because we're not judging social capital on one way or the other by looking at the grant, right? Because we just said, unless you're putting in your social information, we're not looking at that. So for us, we're really trying to decide, like when we work with people, especially because I know that some of those people's social capital has changed significantly since 2019 to now. We're looking at how can we help them move from where they are to where they're going. That like movement that people want to do, that like the shift of their business can really change based off of the work that you're in. Personally, this organization is looking at supporting as many different people in the wellness space, doing as many different modalities as possible. And so I think that because we have such a broad approach of underestimated, of wellness, in terms of its different modalities, we will be able to broaden that. We've only given 3 grants. But, you raise a good point is like, as we go down this path, it's very likely that we'll have to start looking at, okay, who have we funded in the past? And how do we make sure we're staying equitable? And we're not always giving to people with a lot of social capital, like you said, right? Because it's a good point. That's something that they have in common. And I think that would be probably one of the only things those organizations and those leaders have in common with where they are right now.
Okay. Yes. How do venture funds work? Where do you source your funds?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. So venture funds can work in a lot of different ways. So I don't want to really get into that. But venture funds can work. They take money from either outside parties or they create their own revenue. And then they use it. They reinvest it back into cool things, or they reinvest it into things that they reinvest it internally into things that they might be working on, or they reinvest it externally. So what the RV fund does is both. We take in money from outside partners. In the past, we've taken money, like when we did our Relief Fund grant, we had grants from Yoga Alliance and Lululemon. So they worked with us last year. But also all of the projects that I've founded are underneath the RV Reclamation Ventures. A percentage of our proceeds goes into this fund. So actually this year, this impact grant that's coming up this spring is fully funded by the work of the companies that I do. So that's just paying it forward. And we've committed as a fund to actually covering all of the grants that you see on our site right now. However, I really want to get more money to more people. We've worked with really great partners in the past. And so what you may hear from us later on down the line is like, hey, we have a great partner that wants to offer additional funds or additional grants. So that's how we work. my work personally, I'm really passionate about how do we redistribute capital and resources to organizations that need it most. And so that's why I set this up. It's just a way to move the funds forward. So I hope that answers the question.
So I answered this already, but I just wanted to put it out there in case anyone else has this question. But how do you define wellness? Is it individual, physical, mental wellness, or can it be community wellness, environmental wellness?
It can be all of the above, right? Wellness, I think we know that wellness is a lot more than like doing yoga on a yoga mat, right? After brunch on a Sunday or what you might see on TV. It's really about taking care of each other and taking care of ourselves. And that can come into a wide variety of modalities. And so it's intentionally broad because we don't want to limit one's definition of wellness. But I also know that's super nebulous too. So if you're doing work that you think makes you and your community more well and changes what wellness looks like, then we want to work with you. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. I was like, wait,
am I saying the right words anymore?
Another question is, will you be reviewing all applications before making a decision, or is there a limit on how many applications will be accepted for review?
No. So we will be looking at all applications that come in. So no, we're not gonna, there's no first come, first serve. There's no get your application in before somebody else's. You could do it tonight if you wanted to. You could wait until the deadline. But no, we're gonna look at all of them. And also we can't commit to giving individual feedback, so we're not doing that, but we will look at all of them and let you know.
Nice. Speaking of the application, is there a word count limit?
Well, let me look on the back end. Google Forms might have their own thing, but we do not have a limit. I think it will tell you. I'm not seeing a word limit on my side.
Yeah. If you don't get this one, can you apply in the spring?
You can apply for any future one if you don't receive it. Yes. So the next one would be the summer one, which would launch in May. So you'll hear something about it, in mid-April probably from us.
Awesome. I think we've pretty much gotten everything because everything else is kind of further up top when like many of the same. Do you see anything else in the chat that maybe has come in?
No, I'm seeing a lot of sweet notes from everybody. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Um,
Oh, someone's asking if they're a college student and they're dealing with the emergency and have, yeah.
If you feel like what you're applying for helps you continue to do the work of keeping people well, absolutely.
Yes. And someone else is asking, can you reapply if you don't get it? Yes, you can reapply.
Yep.
If you don't get the first round, yes.
You could resubmit the same application, but you'll need to save your application. We won't send you your application so you can send it back to us. You'll have to, if you want to resubmit the same application that you do now, hold on to it. That's just a best practice for grant applications. Side note, save anything you ever send for a grant application and reuse it where it's applicable in the future.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah, I think everything else up here is pretty much, we've answered these. So great job, Nicole.
Thank you. Well, thank you for going through all of them. And great job to everybody for asking such great questions.
Yeah, really, really great questions you all are asking. Yeah, really, really great questions.
I had just a couple of things in closing. Our website is fund.reclamationventures.co. And so I hope that this information is there. I know that we'll be looking back at this and pulling any other questions that came up that we haven't answered on the website and making sure that that's added to over the next couple of days. You'll also be able to access this recording from that website as well. Keep an eye on the space on the, when you go to grant and then request grant, keep an eye on that space for the application. We'll make sure that multiple pronouns are able to be added and that everybody has access to it. Yeah, And then you can, if you haven't already, be sure to sign up for our email list. That's where we send out all of our alerts. And you can follow us at Reclamation Ventures on Instagram.
Perfect. Can you say the website one more time?
Fund, F-U-N-D, I'm going to type it into the chat, .reclamation ventures, all one word, .co.
Put the link in there as well for anyone who needs.
Oh, thank you.
No
I
worries.
typed it too fast.
One last question that someone's asking, because I think we answered this already, but is this considered income?
I don't want to answer people's taxes. I'm not a tax professional. I can't tell you how it would be attributed. And the reason why I say that is I also know that the IRS has changed some rules around receiving gifts and grants for some businesses and individuals. And so I would talk to a tax person.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all so much for this. And as Nicole said, we'll get the application up in just a bit. So just kind of hold tight. We'll kind of go through and make some edits and anything. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We'll do our best to get back to you quickly. So.
All right.
Oh, one more thing. Do you have to finish the app in one sitting or will it save?
I don't believe it will save. I don't think Google Forms has that functionality. So what I would recommend is to answer the questions like in a separate doc and then plop them in when you're ready. You can copy and paste the questions from it. You can screenshot the questions from it, and then you can add them in like as you go. Is that a good question? A good answer?
Okay. So. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here and just for showing up in this.
Yeah.
Oh.
Do you want to take like a breath to close?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Would you like to
lead it? Oh, I am leading it, aren't I? We decided that before this, didn't we? Yeah. All right, everyone. We'll just take one last moment to ground. Maybe just notice the earth underneath you. Invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze. If it's available to you, you can bring your hands to your thighs or place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, whatever feels grounding. We'll take one breath collectively as a group. Exhale all the air out. Take a long breath in. Exhale through the mouth. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes or refocus your gaze. Come back into our little space. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for all the work you all are doing in the world.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Enjoy your evenings. Take care.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you. Goodness.